Thus spake Sri Ramakrishna. Published by the President Sri Ramakrishna Math, Mylapore, Chennai 4. Contents. Invocation. Sri Ramakrishna. God. How to realize God. Jnana. Bhakti. Karma. Guru. Householder. Sannyasin. Message of hope. Invocation. Diverse courses of worship from varied springs of fulfillment have mingled in your meditation. The manifold revelation of the joy of the infinite has given form to a shrine of unity in your life, where from far and near arrive salutations to which I join mine own. Rabindranath Tagore. Sri Ramakrishna, 1836 to 1886. Born in the village of Kamarpukur, 70 miles west of Calcutta, on Wednesday, February the 18th, 1836, and brought up in a pious, devout, and simple rural atmosphere, Gadadhar, later known as Sri Ramakrishna, was endowed with a yearning for the vision of God from his very childhood. Neglecting his studies, he sat with wandering monks and pilgrims and played religious dramas with his young companions. To turn his mind to a useful education, he was brought to Calcutta in his 17th year. Gadadhar, however, observed that the aim of all secular knowledge was mere material advancement, and he resolved to devote himself solely to the pursuit of spiritual knowledge which would ensure eternal peace. Circumstances now so shaped themselves that within a short time he became the priest of the Kali temple at Dakshineswar, which was built by Rani Rashmani, a wealthy and pious widow of Calcutta. The worship of God was after his heart, and he took to the duties of the new vocation with great zeal and enthusiasm. Gradually, his worship developed into a burning desire to have a direct vision of the Divine Mother. He prayed day and night, meditated, and wept bitterly, yearning for the vision of the Divine Mother. At the end of the day, he cried, "O Mother, another day is gone, and still I have not realized thee." He ate little and practically never slept. Finally, the vision of God came to him. Ramakrishna now plunged into hard spiritual practices and realized God by following the various paths of Hinduism and also through the disciplines of Christianity and Islam. Thus, in various ways, Sri Ramakrishna tasted the bliss of communion with God, sometimes merging himself totally in the Absolute, sometimes as a child of the Divine Mother, maintaining an appearance of duality. After all these experiences, he declared, "I have found that it is the same God toward whom all are directing their steps." While he was going through his spiritual ecstasies, rumor had reached Kamarpukur, his village home, that he had gone mad. As a remedy, his mother and elder brother got him married to Sri Sarada Devi, who is now venerated as the Holy Mother. But what a marriage it was! Sri Ramakrishna literally worshipped her as the Divine Mother. Once, while massaging Sri Ramakrishna's feet, Holy Mother asked him, "How do you look upon me?" Sri Ramakrishna replied, "The mother in the Kali temple is the same that gave birth to this Sri Ramakrishna's body, and now resides at the Nahabat. And she, again, is now massaging my feet. Truly, do I see you as a veritable form of the blissful mother." Their union was on the spiritual plane only, yet he taught her everything from housekeeping to the knowledge of Brahman. He instructed her in all the practices of the spiritual life. Like him, she was purer than purity itself. She was chastity incarnate. When the lotus blooms, bees come of their own accord, Sri Ramakrishna said. Men and women from all walks of life and of different religions came to him for spiritual solace. Whoever came with earnestness felt his unbounded love and got spiritually uplifted by his presence and words. He passed away on the 16th of August, 1886. But before that, he had specially trained a band of young men to carry on his spiritual mission. These young men renounced the world after his passing away and formed the monastic order bearing his name, with the motto, "For one's own salvation and also for the welfare of the world." Led by the most dynamic and brilliant of them, Swami Vivekananda, they spread his message in India and abroad. God. You see many stars in the sky at night, but not when the sun rises. Can you therefore say that there are no stars in the heavens during the day? O man, because you cannot find God in the days of your ignorance, say not that there is no God. Many are the names of God, and infinite the forms through which he may be approached. In whatever name and form you worship him, through that you will realize him. The reality is one and the same. The difference is in name and form. There are 3 or 4 ghats on a lake. The Hindus, who drink water at one place, call it jal. The Musalmans at another place call it pani. And the English, at a third place, call it water. All 3 denote one and the same thing, the difference being in the name only. In the same way, some address the reality as Allah, some as God, some as Brahman, some as Kali, and others by such names as Rama, Jesus, Durga, Hari. No one can say with finality that God is only this and nothing else. He is formless, and again he has forms. For the Bhakta he assumes forms, but he is formless for the Jnani. Do you know how it is? Brahman, existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute, is like a shoreless ocean. In the ocean, visible blocks of ice are formed here and there by intense cold. Similarly, under the cooling influence, so to speak, of the bhakti of its worshippers, the infinite transforms itself into the finite and appears before the worshipper as God with form. That is to say, God reveals himself to his bhaktas as an embodied person. Again, as on the rising of the sun, the ice in the ocean melts away, so on the awakening of jnana, the embodied God melts back into the infinite and formless Brahman. Then one does not feel any more that God is a person, nor does one see God's forms. But mark this: form and formlessness belong to one and the same reality. Once a man went into a wood and saw a beautiful creature on a tree. Later he told a friend about it and said, "Brother, on a certain tree in the wood I saw a red-colored creature." The friend answered, "I've seen it too. Why do you call it red? It is green." A third man said, "Oh, no. Why do you call it green? It is yellow." Then other persons began to describe the animal variously as violet, blue, or black. Soon they were quarreling about the color. At last they went to the tree and found a man sitting under it. In answer to their questions, he said, "I live under this tree and know the creature very well. What each of you has said about it is true. Sometimes it is red, sometimes green, sometimes yellow, sometimes blue, and so forth and so on. It is a chameleon. Again, sometimes I see that it has no color whatsoever. In like manner, one who constantly thinks of God can know his forms and aspects. God has attributes. Then again, he has none. Only the man who lives under the tree knows that the chameleon can appear in various colors, and he knows further that the animal at times has no color at all. Others, not knowing the whole truth, quarrel among themselves and suffer. Fire itself has no definite shape, but as glowing embers it assumes different forms. Thus, the formless fire is seen endowed with forms. Similarly, the formless God sometimes invests himself with definite forms. The sun is many times bigger than the earth, but distance makes it appear like a small disk. So the Lord is infinitely great, but being too far away from him, we are incapable of comprehending his real greatness. There is no distinction between impersonal God, Brahman, on the one hand, and personal God, Shakti, on the other. It is one and the same reality. When we think of it as inactive, that is to say, not engaged in the acts of creation, preservation, and destruction, then we call it Brahman. But when it engages in these activities, then we call it Kali or Shakti. God is like a hill of sugar. A small ant carries away from it a small grain of sugar, and a bigger one takes from it a considerably larger grain. But in spite of this, the hill remains as large as before. So are the devotees of God. They become ecstatic, even with a little of a single divine attribute. No one can contain within him the realization of all his glories and excellences. As a piece of lead thrown into a basin of mercury soon dissolves in it, so the individual soul melts away, losing its limitations when it falls into the ocean of Brahman. The water and its bubble are one. The bubble has its birth in the water, floats on it, and ultimately is resolved into it. So also the individual ego, Jivatman, and the Supreme Spirit, Paramatman, are one and the same. The difference is in degree. The one is dependent, the other independent. God is to man as magnet is to iron. Why does he not then attract man? As iron deeply embedded in mud is not moved by the attraction of the magnet, so the soul, deeply embedded in Maya, feels not the attraction of the Lord. But as when the mud is washed away with water, the iron is free to move, so the soul, when by constant tears of prayer and repentance washes away the mud of Maya that makes it cling to the earth, it is soon attracted by the Lord. How to realize God. He is born in vain who, having attained the human birth, so difficult to get, does not attempt to realize God in this very life. Repeat God's name and sing his glories, and keep holy company, and now and then visit God's devotees and holy men. The mind cannot dwell on God if it is immersed day and night in worldliness, in worldly duties and responsibilities. It is most necessary to go into solitude now and then and think of God. The point is to love God even as the mother loves her child, the chaste wife her husband, and the worldly man his wealth. Add together these three forces of love, these three powers of attraction, and give it all to God. Then you will certainly see him. One must go into solitude to attain this divine love. To get butter from milk, you must let it set into curd in a secluded spot. If it is too much disturbed, milk won't turn into curd. Next, you must put aside all other duties, sit in a quiet spot, and churn the curd. Only then do you get butter. Similarly, by meditating on God in solitude, the mind acquires knowledge, dispassion, and devotion. One cannot have the vision of God as long as one has these three: shame, hatred, and fear. The heavier scale of a balance goes down while the lighter rises up. Similarly, he who is weighed down by the many cares and anxieties of the world sinks down into it, while he who has fewer rises up towards the feet of the Lord. One should feel a yearning for God, like the yearning of a man who has lost his job and is wandering from one office to another in search of work. Nothing whatsoever is achieved in spiritual life without yearning. By constantly living in the company of holy men, the soul becomes restless for God. This yearning is like the state of mind of a man who has someone ill in the family. His mind is in a state of perpetual restlessness, thinking how the sick person may be cured. If a man practices absolute continence for 12 years, the Medanadi will open, i.e., his powers of understanding will blossom. His understanding will become capable of penetrating and comprehending the subtlest of ideas. With such an understanding, man can realize God. God can be attained only through a purified understanding of this type. Men shed streams of tears because sons are not born to them. Others wear away their hearts in sorrow because they cannot get riches. But alas, how many are there who sorrow and weep for not having seen God? Very few indeed. Verily, he who seeks him, who weeps for him, attains him. I must attain God in this very life. Yea, in 3 days I must find him. Nay, with a single utterance of his name, I will draw him to me. With such violent love, the devotee can attract the Lord and realize him quickly. But devotees who are lukewarm in their love take ages to find him, indeed, if they find him at all. If God is omnipresent, why do we not see him? Observing from the bank of a pool thickly covered with scum and weeds, you will not see the water in it. If you desire to see the water, remove the scum from the surface of the pond. With eyes covered with the film of Maya, you complain that you cannot see God. If you wish to see him, remove the film of Maya from your eyes. One cannot see one's face in a mirror if the mirror is covered with dirt. After the purification of the heart, one attains divine love. Then one sees God through his grace. Chant his name and purify your body and mind. Purify your tongue by singing God's holy name. When you are engaged in devotional practices, keep aloof from those who scoff at them, and also from those who ridicule piety and the pious. The magnetic needle always points to the north, and hence it is that the sailing vessel does not lose her direction. So long as the heart of man is directed towards God, he cannot be lost in the ocean of worldliness. God cannot be realized if there is the slightest attachment to the things of the world. A thread cannot pass through the eye of a needle if the tiniest fiber sticks out, as it is very difficult to gather the mustard seeds that escape out of a torn package and are scattered in all directions. So it is not a very easy affair to ingather and concentrate the mind which runs after worldly things in diverse directions. God is attained only when man gets established in one or other of these 3 attitudes. 1. All this am I. 2. All this art thou. 3. Thou art the master, and I am the servant. As the tiger devours other animals, so does the tiger of zeal for the Lord eat up lust, anger, and the other passions. Once this zeal grows in the heart, lust and the other passions disappear. The parrot cannot be taught to talk when the membrane of its throat has hardened due to age. It must be taught while it is young. Similarly, in old age, it is difficult for the mind to be fixed on God. It can be easily done so in youth. When the mind and speech unite in earnestly asking for a thing, that prayer is answered. Of no avail are the prayers of that man who says with his mouth, "These are all thine, O Lord," and at the same time thinks in his heart that all of them are his. Be not a traitor in your thoughts. Be sincere. Act according to your thoughts, and you shall surely succeed. Pray with a sincere and simple heart, and your prayers will be heard. Do not let worldly thoughts and anxieties disturb your mind. Do everything that is necessary in the proper time, and let your mind be always fixed on God. Pray to the Divine Mother, begging her to give you unswerving love and adamantine faith. He who from the depths of his soul seeks to know God will certainly realize him. He must. He alone who is restless for God and seeks nothing but him will certainly realize him. Can you weep for him with intense longing of heart? Men shed a jugful of tears for the sake of their children, for their wives, or for money. But who weeps for God? So long as the child remains engrossed with its toys, the mother looks after her cooking and other household duties. But when the child no longer relishes the toys, it throws them aside and yells for its mother. Then the mother takes the rice pot down from the hearth, runs in haste, and takes the child in her arms. One cannot realize God without sincerity and simplicity. God is far, far away from the crooked heart. How can you develop divine love? A. Through restlessness, the restlessness a child feels for his mother. The child feels bewildered when he is separated from his mother and weeps longingly for her. If a man can weep like that for God, he can even see him. A disciple asked his teacher, "Sir, please tell me how I can see God." "Come with me," said the Guru, "and I shall show you." He took the disciple to a lake, and both of them got into the water. Suddenly the teacher pressed the disciple's head under the water. After a few moments he released him, and the disciple raised his head and stood up. The Guru asked him, "How did you feel?" The disciple said, "Oh, I thought I should die. I was panting for breath." The teacher said, "When you feel like that for God, then you will know you haven't long to wait for his vision." The angler, anxious to hook a big fish, waits calmly for hours together, having thrown the bait and the hook into water. Similarly, the devotee who patiently goes on with his devotions is sure at last to find his God. In the ocean of the world, there are 6 alligators: lust, anger, and so forth. But you need not fear the alligators if you smear your body with turmeric before you go into the water. Discrimination and dispassion are the turmeric. How can we conquer lust? Look upon all women as your own mother. Never look at the face of a woman, but look at her feet. All evil thoughts will then fly away. All women are parts of the Blessed Mother and should be looked upon as mothers. Those who wish to attain God or make progress in their devotional practices should particularly guard themselves against the snares of lust and wealth. Otherwise, they will never attain perfection. Don't find fault with anyone, not even with an insect. As you pray to God for devotion, so also pray that you may not find fault with anyone. God cannot be realized by a mind that is hypocritical, calculating, or argumentative. One must have faith and sincerity. To the sincere, God is very near, but he is far, far away from the hypocrite. When you find that the very mention of God's name brings tears to your eyes and makes your hair stand on end, Then you will know that you have freed yourself from attachment to lust and gold and attained God. Whether you accept Radha and Krishna or not, please do accept their attraction for each other. Try to create that same yearning in your heart for God. Yearning is all you need in order to realize Him. There are various paths to reach God. Each view is a path. It is like reaching the Kali temple by different roads. But it must be said that some paths are clean and some dirty. It is good to travel on a clean path. The nearer you come to God, the more you feel peace. Peace, 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 supreme peace. The nearer you come to the Ganges, the more you feel its coolness. You will feel completely soothed when you plunge into the river. Jnana. The jnani, sticking to the path of knowledge, always reasons about the reality, saying, not this, not this. Brahman is neither this nor that. It is neither the universe nor its living beings. Reasoning in this way, the mind becomes steady. Then it disappears and the aspirant goes into samadhi. If one analyzes oneself, one doesn't find any such thing as I. Take an onion, for instance. First of all, you peel off the red outer skin, then you find thick white skins. Peel these off one after the other, and you won't find anything inside. In that state, a man no longer finds the existence of his ego. And who is there left to seek it? Who can describe how he feels in that state, in his own pure consciousness, about the real nature of Brahman? So long as God seems to be outside and far away, there is ignorance. But when God is realized within, there is true knowledge. He who sees Him in the temple of his own soul sees Him also in the temple of the universe. As long as a man feels that God is there, he is ignorant. But he attains knowledge when he feels that God is here. To follow jnana yoga in this age is very difficult. First, a man's life depends entirely on food. Second, he has a short span of life. Third, rarely can he get rid of body consciousness, and the knowledge of Brahman is impossible without the destruction of body consciousness. What is jnana in the highest sense? Says the jnani, O God, You alone act in all this universe. I am but the smallest of tools in Your hands. Nothing is mine. Everything is Yours. Myself, my family, my riches, my virtues, all are Yours. The master of the house is asleep in a dark room. Someone is groping in the darkness to find him. He touches the couch and says, No, it is not he. He touches the window and says, No, it is not he. He touches the door and says, No, it is not he. This is known in the Vedanta as the process of neti neti. Not this, not this. At last, his hand touches the master's body, and he exclaims, "Here he is!" In other words, he is now conscious of the existence of the master. He has found him, but he doesn't yet know him intimately. I have seen that the knowledge derived by reasoning is of quite a different kind from the knowledge derived through meditation. And quite different from this again is the knowledge that dawns by his revelation. Knowledge leads to unity, ignorance to diversity. The Jnana Yogi says, "I am he." But as long as one has the idea of the self as body, this egotism is injurious. It does not help one's progress, and it brings about one's ruin. Such a person deceives himself and others. Bhakti. Bhakti is single-minded devotion to God, like the devotion a wife feels for her husband. It is very difficult to have unalloyed devotion to God. Through such devotion, one's mind and soul merge in Him. Prema means such love for God that it makes a man forget the world and also his body, which is so dear to him. Caitanya Deva had prema. God cannot remain unmoved if you have raga bhakti, that is, love of God with passionate attachment to Him. Do you know how fond God is of His devotees' love? It is like the cow's fondness for fodder mixed with oil cake. The cow gobbles it down greedily. You should remember that the heart of the devotee is the abode of God. He dwells, no doubt, in all beings, but He especially manifests Himself in the heart of the devotee. The heart of the devotee is the drawing room of God. Bhakti Yoga is prescribed for this age. By following this path, one comes to God more easily than by following the others. One can undoubtedly reach God by following the paths of jnana and karma, but they are very difficult paths. What is Bhakti Yoga? It is to keep the mind on God by chanting His name and glories. An image cannot be impressed on bare glass, but only on glass stained with a black solution, as in photography. The black solution is devotion to God. Love is of three varieties: unselfish, samartha; mutual, samanjasa; and ordinary or selfish, sadharana. Unselfish love is of the highest kind. The lover here seeks only the welfare of the beloved and does not care whether he himself suffers pains and hardships thereby. The second kind of love is mutual love, in which the lover desires not only the happiness of his beloved, but has an eye to his own happiness also. Selfish love is the lowest. It makes a man only care for his own happiness, without having any regard for the weal or woe of the beloved. One cannot see God if one has even the slightest trace of worldliness. Matchsticks, if damp, won't strike fire, though you rub 1,000 of them against the matchbox. You only waste a heap of sticks. The mind soaked in worldliness is such a damp matchstick. If you must be mad, why should you be mad for the things of the world? If you must be mad for God alone. Pure knowledge and pure love are one and the same thing. Both lead the aspirants to the same goal. The path of love is much the easier. Jnana is like a man and bhakti is like a woman. Knowledge has entry only up to the drawing room of God, but love can enter his inner apartments. Who is the best devotee of God? It is he who sees, after the realization of Brahman, that God alone has become all living beings, the universe, and the 24 cosmic principles. One must discriminate at first, saying, not this, and reach the roof. After that, one realizes that the steps are made of the same materials as the roof, namely brick, lime, and brick dust. The devotee realizes that it is Brahman alone that has become all these, the living beings, the universe, and so on. Karma. It is not possible for you to give up work altogether. Your very nature will lead you to it, and whether you like it or not. Therefore, the scriptures ask you to work in a detached spirit, that is to say, not to crave for the work's results. To work in such a spirit of detachment is known as Karma Yoga. A devotee. What about our worldly duties associated with our earning money and so on? Master. Yes, you can perform them too, but only as much as you need for your livelihood. At the same time, you must pray to God in solitude with tears in your eyes, that you may be able to perform those duties in an unselfish manner. Do your work, but surrender the result to God. Undertake only those works that present themselves to you and are of pressing necessity, and those also in a spirit of detachment. It is not good to become involved in many activities. That makes one forget God. When a man sheds tears at the name of Hari, Kali, or Rama, then he has no further need of the sandhya and other rites. All actions drop away of themselves. The fruit of action does not touch him. All actions drop away when a man reaches the stage of the Paramahamsa. He always remembers the ideal and meditates on it. He is always united with God in his mind. If he ever performs an action, it is to teach men. Guru. Anyone and everyone cannot be a guru. A huge timber floats on the water and can carry animals as well. But a piece of worthless wood sinks if a man sits on it and drowns him. Therefore, in every age, God incarnates himself as the Guru to teach humanity. Satchitananda alone is the Guru. He who can himself approach God with sincerity, earnest prayer, and deep longing needs no Guru. But such deep yearning of the soul is very rare, hence the necessity of a Guru. The Guru is only one, but Upagurus, subsidiary teachers, may be many. He is an upaguru from whom anything whatsoever is learned. The great Avaduta, an ascetic of high order mentioned in the Bhagavata, had 24 such upagurus. If you are in right earnest to learn the mysteries of God, he will send you the Sadguru, the right teacher. You need not trouble yourself about finding out a guru. There are 3 classes of physicians. The physicians of one class feel the patient's pulse and go away, merely prescribing medicine. As they leave the room, they simply ask the patient to take the medicine. They are the poorest class of physicians. Likewise, there are teachers who only give instruction, but do not stop to see whether their teachings have produced a good or bad effect. They do not think at all about the disciple. There are physicians of another class who prescribe medicine and ask the patient to take it. If the patient is unwilling to follow their directions, they reason with him. They are the mediocre physicians. Likewise, there are mediocre teachers. They give instruction to the student and, further, try to persuade him in various ways to follow the instruction. Lastly, there are the physicians of the highest class. If the patient does not respond to their gentle persuasion, they even exert force upon him. If necessary, they press their knees on the patient's chest and force the medicine down his throat. Likewise, there are teachers of the highest class who even exert force to direct the mind of the pupil towards God. When going to a strange country, one must abide by the directions of the guide who knows the way. Taking the advice of many would lead to utter confusion. So, in trying to reach God, one must implicitly follow the advice of one single guru who knows the way to God. Take the pearl and throw away the oyster shell. Meditate on the mantra given to you by the guru and leave out of consideration the human frailties of the teacher. Listen not to anyone censoring your guru. He is greater than your father and mother. Would you keep quiet when your father and mother are insulted in your very presence? Fight, if necessary, and maintain the honor of your guru. One must have faith and love. Let me tell you how powerful faith is. A man was about to cross the sea from Ceylon to India. Vibhishna said to him, "Tie this thing in a corner of your wearing cloth, and you will cross the sea safely. You will be able to walk on the water, but be sure not to examine it, or you will sink." The man was walking easily on the water of the sea. Such is the strength of faith. When, having gone part of the way, he thought, "What is this wonderful thing Vibhishna has given me, that I can walk even on the water?" He untied the knot and found only a leaf with the name of Rama written on it. "Oh, just this," he thought, and instantly he sank. There is a popular saying that Hanuman jumped over the sea through his faith in Rama's name. But Rama himself had to build a bridge. All want to be teachers, but who cares to be a disciple? God does reveal himself to man and speak. Only then may one receive his command. How forceful are the words of such a teacher! They can move mountains. But mere lectures? People will listen to them for a few days and then forget them. They will never act upon mere words. A guru is like the mighty Ganga. Men throw all filth and refuse into the Ganga, but the holiness of that river is not diminished thereby. So is the guru above all petty insult and censure. He who is an acharya has to know different things. One needs a sword and shield to kill others, but to kill oneself, a needle or a nail knife suffices. Ordinary souls are afraid to teach others. A piece of worthless timber may itself somehow float across the water, but it sinks even under the weight of a bird. Sages like Narada are like a heavy log of wood, which not only floats on the water, but can also carry men, cows, and even elephants. Householder. Do all your duties, but keep your mind on God. Live with all, with wife and children, father and mother, and serve them. Treat them as if they were very dear to you, but know in your heart of hearts that they do not belong to you. A maid-servant in the house of a rich man performs all the household duties, but her thoughts are fixed on her own home in her native village. She brings up her master's children as if they were her own. She even speaks of them as my Rama or my Hari. But in her own mind, she knows very well that they do not belong to her at all. The tortoise moves about in the water, but can you guess where her thoughts are? There on the bank, where her eggs are lying. Do all your duties in the world, but keep your mind on God. The camel loves to eat thorny bushes. The more it eats the thorns, the more the blood gushes from its mouth. Still, it must eat thorny plants and will never give them up. The man of worldly nature suffers so much sorrow and affliction, but he forgets it all in a few days and begins his old life over again. Remain always strong and steadfast in thine own faith, but eschew all bigotry and intolerance. While playing the game of hide and seek, you are safe if you but once touch the granny. Be turned into gold by touching the philosopher's stone. After that you may remain buried underground 1,000 years. When you are taken out, you will still be gold. The mind is like milk. If you keep the mind in the world, which is like water, then the milk and water will get mixed. That is why people keep milk in a quiet place and let it set into curd, and then churn butter from it. Likewise, through spiritual discipline practiced in solitude, churn the butter of knowledge and devotion from the milk of the mind. Then that butter can easily be kept in the water of the world. It will not get mixed with the world. The mind will float detached on the water of the world. Some have heard of milk, some have seen it, and some again have tasted it. You feel happy when you see milk. You are nourished and strengthened when you drink it. You will get peace of mind only when you have seen God. You will enjoy bliss and gain strength only when you have talked to Him. Live in the world like an unchaste woman. She performs her household duties with great attention, but her mind dwells day and night on her paramour. Perform your duties in the world, but keep your mind always fixed on God. Live in the water like a waterfowl. The water clings to the bird, but the bird shakes it off. Live in the world like a mudfish. The fish lives in the mud, but its skin is always bright and shiny. The world is a mixture of milk and water, the bliss of God consciousness and the pleasure of sense enjoyment. Be a swan and drink the milk, leaving the water aside. I tell you the truth. There is nothing wrong in your being in the world, but you must direct your mind toward God. Otherwise, you will not succeed. Do your duty with one hand and with the other hold to God. After the duty is over, you will hold to God with both hands. Live in the world like a cast-off leaf in a gale. Such a leaf is sometimes blown inside a house and sometimes to a rubbish heap. The leaf goes wherever the wind blows, sometimes to a good place and sometimes to a bad. God has put you in the world. What can you do about it? Resign everything to Him. Surrender yourself at His feet. Then there will be no more confusion. Then you will realize that it is God who does everything. All depends on the will of Rama. When you practice discipline in solitude, keep yourself entirely away from your family. You must not allow your wife, son, daughter, mother, father, sister, brother, friends, or relatives near you. While thus practicing discipline in solitude, you should think, I have no one else in the world. God is my all. You must also pray to Him with tears in your eyes for knowledge and devotion. If you ask me how long you should live in solitude away from your family, I should say that it would be good for you if you could spend even one day in such a manner. 3 days at a time are still better. A man living in society should make a show of tamas to protect himself from evil-minded people. But he should not harm anybody in anticipation of harm likely to be done to him. After the birth of 1 or 2 children, the husband and wife should live as brother and sister and talk only of God. Then both their minds will be drawn towards God, and the wife will be a help to the husband on the path of spirituality. A sadhu or god should never be visited empty-handed. However trifling the present, it may even be a trifling fruit. Take something with you to place before the great ones of the world. Duties of householders are kindness to living beings, service to devotees, and the chanting of God's holy name. Money can procure only bread and butter. Do not consider it to be thy flesh and blood, or thy sole end and aim. All trouble and botheration come to an end when the I dies. You may indulge in thousands of reasonings, but still the I doesn't disappear. For people like you and me, it is good to have the feeling, I am the lover of God. The way is constant practice. At Karmarpukur, I have seen the women of the carpenter families flattening rice with a husking machine. They are always fearful of the pestle smashing their fingers, and at the same time they go on nursing their children and bargaining with customers. Sannyasin. He who has surrendered his mind, heart, and soul to God is a sadhu, a monk. He who has given up lust and gold is a sadhu. He looks upon women as his mother and accordingly worships them. A sadhu always thinks of God and serves all, knowing that God is in everything. He who gives up the world altogether without having any thought of the morrow, as to how he will eat or how he will be clothed, is fit to be a true sannyasin. His mentality must be like that of a man who can, if need be, let himself fall fearlessly from the top of a tall tree without any thought of saving his own life or limbs. There are many kinds of renunciation. One of them may be called Markata Vairagya, monkey renunciation. It is a false renunciation, stimulated by the afflictions of the world. That renunciation doesn't last long. Then there is real renunciation. A man with everything in the world, lacking nothing, feels all to be unreal. It is not possible to acquire renunciation all at once. The time factor must be taken into account, but it is also true that a man should hear about it. By constantly hearing about renunciation, one's desire for worldly objects gradually wears away. One should take rice water in small doses to get rid of the intoxication of liquor. Then one gradually becomes normal. The sadhu who distributes medicines, uses spells and incantations, is addicted to intoxicants, receives money, and displays his piety with the signboards of elaborate external marks, is not a proper sadhu. Avoid the company of such. A man cannot realize God unless he renounces everything mentally. A sadhu cannot lay things up. Birds and wandering monks do not make provision for the morrow. When a man is intoxicated with ecstatic love of God, then who is his father or mother or wife? Then he has no duty to perform. He is free from all debts. In this state, a man forgets the world. He also forgets his own body, which is so dear to all. An all-renouncing sannyasin will not touch woman and gold. He will not even look at the picture of a woman. True sannyasin and real lover of God regard womankind, whether chaste or otherwise, as manifestations of the Divine Mother. There is a big difference between a scholar and a holy man. The mind of a mere scholar is fixed on woman and gold, but the sadhu's mind is on the lotus feet of Hari. Message of hope. I tell you, he who wants to find him finds him. Go and verify it in your own life. Try for 3 days. Try with genuine zeal and you are sure to succeed. He finds God quickest, whose concentration and yearning are strongest. The darkness of centuries is dispersed as soon as a light is brought into a room. The accumulated sins of countless lives vanish by a single glance of God. The breeze of His grace is blowing day and night over your head. Unfurl the sails of your boat, the mind, if you want to make rapid progress through the ocean of life. One should constantly repeat the name of God. The name of God is highly effective in the Kali Yuga. The practice of yoga is not possible in this age, for the life of a man depends on food. Clap your hands while repeating God's name, and the birds of your sin will fly away. It is the nature of a child to soil itself with dirt and mud, but the mother does not allow it to remain dirty always. She washes it from time to time. Similarly, it is in the nature of man to commit sin. But if man is sure to commit sin, doubly sure is that the Lord devises methods for his redemption. A landlord may be very rich, but when a poor tenant brings a humble present to him with a loving heart, he accepts it with the greatest pleasure. So, the Almighty God, though so great and powerful, accepts the humble offerings of a sincere heart with the greatest pleasure and satisfaction. There is no sin in disobeying one's superiors for the sake of God. Bharata disobeyed Kaikeyi for the sake of Rama. The gopis disobeyed their husbands for the sake of seeing Krishna, and Prahlada disobeyed his father for the sake of God. Have faith. Depend on God. Then you will not have to do anything yourself. Mother Kali will do everything for you. Why should you be frightened? Hold fast to God. What if the world is like a forest of thorns? Put on shoes and walk on the thorns. Whom should you fear? God himself will think about your morrow if you completely surrender yourself to him. God is our very own. You can exert force on him. I tell you, your salvation is assured if you put into practice even 1/16 of what I say to you. God is the ocean of mercy. Be his slave and take refuge in him. He will show compassion. Pray to him. Protect me always with your compassionate face. Lead me from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. Reveal yourself to me and protect me always with your compassionate face. This reading is from the book Thus Spake Sri Ramakrishna. Books can be ordered at www.sriramakrishnamat.org.